Ambassador Hyun-woo stood in the center of the Galaxy Council chamber and looked at the faces around him. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin that changed colors, but they all had the same look in their eyes when they saw him. They thought humans were children playing with grown-up things. Today that would change. The chamber was huge and filled with beings from across the galaxy. Each species had their own section with seats made for their different bodies. The air smelled like a mix of different worlds and different lives. Hyun-woo had been coming here for 10 years, and every time he spoke, they listened with the same patient smiles they gave to youngsters who did not know better. High Chancellor Mordun sat at the center of it all. His insect body was old, maybe 300 years old, and his 4 eyes looked down at Hyun-woo like he was watching a pet do a trick. The Chancellor's voice came out in clicks and buzzes that the translation system turned into words. Ambassador Hyun-woo, you have requested. Time to address the Council. We give you this time, though we hope you will be brief. We have important matters to discuss today. Important matters. Hyun-woo almost smiled. For 50 years, humans had brought problems to this council. Pirates attacking human ships, trade disputes, requests for help with natural disasters. Every time, the council had said the same thing. Humans are new to the galaxy. You must learn patience. These things take time to solve. Meanwhile, other species got help right away. When the Kalari had trouble with their mining rights, the council sent ships to help them in 3 days. When the Zephyrians faced economic problems, the council gave them emergency aid in 1 week. But when humans asked for anything, they were told to wait and learn. Thank you, Chancellor Mordun, Hyun-woo said. His voice was calm and clear. I come before you today not to ask for help, but to inform you of a decision. After careful thought, humanity has decided to withdraw from all galactic treaties, all trade agreements, and all diplomatic relations with the members of this council. The chamber went quiet. Then the noise started. Beings clicked, chirped, roared, and made sounds that had no translation. Some laughed, others looked confused. A few seemed worried, but not many. Councillor Vexitar stood up from his seat. The tall reptilian being had been one of the loudest voices against human requests over the years. His forked tongue flicked out as he spoke. Ambassador, surely you do not mean this. Humans are upset about the mining dispute on Kepler 442, yes? Or perhaps the delayed response to your request for patrol ships in the Outer Rim. These are minor issues. There is no need for such dramatic actions. Hyun-woo turned to look at Vexitar directly. Counselor, this decision has nothing to do with any single issue. For 5 decades, humanity has been treated as junior members of this galaxy. Our voices have been ignored, our problems dismissed, and our contributions overlooked. We have decided that we no longer wish to be part of this system. High Chancellor Mordun's 4 eyes focused on Hyun-woo. Young species often feel this way. It is normal. In time, you will understand the wisdom of patience. The galaxy is old, and its ways have kept peace for thousands of years. Humans have been part of galactic society for only 50 years. You are still learning. We have learned, Hyun-woo said. We have learned that this council sees us as children who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention we receive. We have learned that our requests are always less important than those of older species. We have learned that equality is not something that will be given to us, no matter how long we wait. Captain So-young watched from the observation deck above the chamber. She commanded the small fleet of human ships that had escorted the ambassador to this meeting. Through her earpiece, she heard every word. Her hand rested on her communicator, waiting for the signal. Down in the chamber, Councillor Zephyra of the Altarian Federation leaned forward in her seat. She was one of the few council members who had sometimes supported human positions. Ambassador Hyun-woo, perhaps we can discuss this. If humans have specific complaints, we can address them. There is no need to leave the council entirely. Hyun-woo shook his head. Councillor Zephyra, you have been kind to humanity, and we remember that. But kindness from one does not make up for dismissal from all the rest. Our decision is final. Admiral Thargan of the Nexian Empire stood up. His massive form cast shadows across several smaller council members. This is foolish. Humans cannot survive alone in this galaxy. You need our protection, our trade routes, our technology. What will you do when the pirates come? What will you do when your colonies need supplies? You will come running back to us within a year. Perhaps, Hyunwoo said. Or perhaps not. Humans have always been good at adapting to new situations. Hi. Chancellor Morden made a sound that might have been laughter. Very well. If humanity wishes to leave, we will not stop you. But understand that once you go, there will be no special treatment when you return. You will have to apply for readmission like any new species, and the process takes decades. We understand, Hyunwoo said. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. This contains the formal withdrawal documents signed by every human government and colony. It also contains the locations of all human diplomatic posts, which will be closed immediately, and all human personnel who will be recalled. He placed the device on the central podium and stepped back. Humanity, thanks the Council for the lessons learned during our time here. We will remember them well. Captain So-young received the signal and spoke into her communicator. All ships, begin withdrawal. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. Above the planet where the Council met, the small human fleet began to move, but they were not alone. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds and in dozens of star systems, other human ships were moving too. Trade vessels changed course mid-journey. Colony ships began emergency departures. Research stations went dark and evacuation ships appeared to collect their crews. Back in the council chamber, Hyunwoo bowed slightly to the assembled beings. This concludes humanity's final address to the Galaxy Council. We wish you well in your future endeavors. He turned and walked toward the exit. His steps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. Some council members were still laughing or making jokes, but others were beginning to look thoughtful. A few were already reaching for their communicators to contact their homeworlds. Counselor Vextar called out, "This tantrum will not last, human. You will be back when reality sets in." Hyunwoo paused at the door but did not turn around. "Counselor, humanity stopped throwing tantrums when we learned to build starships. What happens next is not anger, it is choice." The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. High Chancellor Morden looked around the chamber at the other council members. Well, that was unexpected, though not entirely surprising. Young species often need to test their independence before they truly mature. "Should we be concerned?" asked Counselor Zafira. "Humans control several important trade routes and mining operations. They control small operations on frontier worlds," Admiral Thargan said with dismissal. "Important to them, perhaps, but not to the galaxy as a whole. When their supplies run low and their equipment breaks down, they will return. Humans are too dependent on galactic infrastructure to survive alone." But even as he spoke, reports were beginning to come in. Human ships were disappearing from sensors across the galaxy. Human-operated facilities were shutting down. Human workers were leaving their jobs on alien worlds and heading for the nearest human transport. On her ship above the planet, Captain So-young watched the withdrawal begin. Every human in space was following the same plan they had developed in secret over the past 5 years. Every human colony had been preparing for this day. Every human ship knew where to go and what to do. "Captain," her communication officer reported, "all human vessels are responding. Withdrawal is proceeding on schedule. No interference from local authorities." "Good," So-young said. "Set course for Rendezvous Point Alpha. Send the final message to all human worlds." Across human space, the message went out on channels that only humans knew existed. It was simple, and it was final. "The experiment is over. Time to go home." The Galaxy Council continued their meeting, but the mood had changed. What had started as amusement was slowly turning into something else. The beings who ruled the galaxy were beginning to realize that something significant had just happened, even if they did not yet understand what it meant. In the days that followed, they would learn exactly what humanity's withdrawal meant for the galaxy. They would discover just how much they had overlooked about the species they had dismissed as young and inexperienced, and they would begin to panic as the full scope of their mistake became clear. But that would come later. For now, Ambassador, Hyunwoo walked to his ship and prepared to leave the galactic capital for the last time. Behind him, the Galaxy Council continued their meeting, unaware that they had just witnessed the beginning of the end of the world as they knew it. 3 months had passed since the humans walked away from the Galaxy Council, and Trader Kelmoth was beginning to worry. His cargo ship drifted in space near what used to be the human mining station on asteroid belt 7G. The massive rock should have been crawling with workers and filled with the sounds of mining equipment. Instead, it was silent and dark. Kelmoth pressed his tentacles against the control panel and sent another signal toward the asteroid. Nothing came back except empty static. He had been trading with the humans here for 8 years, buying their processed metals and selling them equipment from across the galaxy. The humans always paid on time and never tried to cheat him. Now they were simply gone. "Computer, scan the asteroid for life signs," he said in his bubbling voice. "Scan complete. No life signs detected. No active power sources detected. Mining. Equipment appears to be shut down but undamaged." This was the 7th human facility Kelmoth had visited in the past month, and they were all the same. Empty but not destroyed, shut down but not damaged. The humans had not fled in panic or been forced to leave by enemies. They had simply packed up and left, taking everyone with them. On the planet Kepler 1-86F, Director J. Ho of the Colonial Mining Consortium was having the same conversation he had been having for weeks. The tall Vraxian in front of his desk was waving all 4 of his arms in frustration. "You cannot simply leave," Mining Supervisor Gorthal was saying. "Your contract with our company runs for 3 more years. We paid you in advance for processing services." J-Ho looked at the alien, with tired eyes. He had been explaining the same thing to different species for months now. The contract was with the human government through the Galaxy Council trade framework. Since humanity is no longer part of that framework, the contract is void. "But the processed ore," Gorthal insisted. "Who will handle the processing? Your facilities are the only ones in this sector that can handle our specific mineral types." "That is no longer our concern," J-Ho said simply. "All human personnel will be evacuated from this world within 72 hours. We suggest you find alternative arrangements." Gorthal's skin changed from blue to deep red, which J-Ho knew meant extreme anger. "This is ridiculous. You cannot just abandon your responsibilities." "We are not abandoning anything," J-Ho replied. "We are choosing to end our participation in a system that does not value our contributions. The Galaxy Council made it clear that human concerns are not important. We have decided that galactic concerns are equally unimportant to us." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, engineer Yu Jin was putting the final touches on her work. The massive power relay station that she and her team had built was a marvel of engineering, designed to boost communication signals across 3 different star systems. It had taken them 4 years to build and had been working perfectly for 2 years. Now she was carefully shutting it down. "Yu Jin, are you sure about this?" asked her assistant, an eager young man named Dae Ho. "This station serves dozens of worlds. Without it, they will lose contact with each other." Yu Jin looked at the control panel one last time. The station was more than just a relay. It was also a monitoring post that had been quietly recording every message that passed through it for the past 2 years. The Galaxy Council had no idea that humans had been watching and listening to their communications across multiple sectors. "They will figure out how to fix it," she said. "Or they will not. Either way, it is not our problem anymore." She pressed the final shutdown sequence, and the lights on the massive station went dark. Around them, evacuation ships waited to take the human crew to their new home. Back on the Galaxy Council headquarters, High Chancellor Mordun was reviewing reports with growing confusion. What had started as minor inconveniences was becoming something larger. Human-operated facilities across the galaxy were going offline. Trade routes that had depended on human services were being disrupted. Colonies that had relied on human technical support were reporting equipment failures. "How widespread is this withdrawal?" he asked his aide, a nervous Kalari named Wixtar. "More extensive than we initially calculated, Chancellor," Wixtar reported. Humans were involved in operations across 47 different star systems. Many of these operations were small, but they were often critical to local infrastructure. Admiral Thargan entered the chamber without waiting to be announced. His massive form filled the doorway as he approached the Chancellor's desk. "We have a problem," he said without introduction. 3 major shipping routes have been disrupted because human stations that provided refueling and maintenance services have shut down. Cargo ships are stranded. High Chancellor Mordun's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Surely other species..." can take over these services. That is what we assumed, Admiral Thargan replied. But it is not that simple. The humans had developed specialized techniques for dealing with certain types of equipment and environmental conditions. Their methods were different from ours, but they worked well. Replacing them will take time and resources. Counselor Zephyra had been quietly investigating the human withdrawal from her own world. What she had discovered worried her more than she wanted to admit. She requested a private meeting with the Chancellor and arrived at his office with a datapad full of information. Chancellor, I believe we may have underestimated the scope of human involvement in galactic infrastructure, she began carefully. Explain, Morden said. Zephyra activated her datapad and projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared scattered across the display. Each of these red dots represents a human facility or operation that has shut down in the past 3 months. As you can see, they are not random. They form patterns. The Chancellor studied the map. The red dots did indeed form patterns, creating gaps in what had been continuous networks of communication relays, supply stations, and technical support facilities. The humans were not just operating random outposts, Zephyra continued. They were filling gaps in our infrastructure that we did not even realize existed. They were maintaining systems that we had forgotten about or taken for granted. That seems unlikely, the Chancellor said. Humans have only been in space for 50 years. How could they have become so integrated into systems that are centuries old? By being helpful, Zephyra said simply. When we needed something fixed, they fixed it. When we needed something maintained, they maintained it. When we needed problems solved, they solved them. We thought they were just being eager to please, trying to prove themselves worthy of council membership. But they were actually making themselves necessary. On the frontier world of Kepler 452b, the consequences of the human withdrawal were becoming clear. The planet's main power grid had been experiencing problems for months, but the human technical team stationed there had always managed to keep it running. Now the humans were gone, and the power grid was failing. Governor Thaxik of the local Zephyrian administration stood in his office watching the city lights flicker. Half the residential districts had lost power completely, and the industrial sector was running on emergency backup systems. Have we found replacement technicians? He asked his aide. We have contacted several engineering firms from the core worlds, the aide replied. They say they can send a team, but it will take 6 weeks for them to arrive, and they are not familiar with human-designed systems. Human-designed systems? Governor Thaxik turned from the window. I thought the power grid was built by Altarian contractors. It was, originally. But the humans redesigned major portions of it when they were asked to solve the efficiency problems 3 years ago. Their modifications improved power output by 30% and reduced maintenance requirements. But now, no one understands how their modifications work. This same conversation was happening on dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Humans had been quietly solving problems and improving systems for decades, but they had done it so efficiently that other species had forgotten how things worked before the humans arrived. In the Outer Rim territories, the situation was even worse. Pirates had always been a problem in the sparsely populated regions, but human patrol ships had kept them under control. The humans had volunteered for the dangerous and unprofitable patrol duties that other species avoided. Now, those patrol ships were gone. Captain Rexoth of the merchant vessel, Starwind, sent an emergency message to the nearest Galaxy Council patrol base. This is Captain Rexoth requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by pirates in the Vega system. Our cargo includes medical supplies for the colony on Vega Prime. The response came back hours later. Captain Rexoth, this is Patrol Base 17. We have no ships available for dispatch to your location. Estimated response. Time for assistance is 48 hours. By then, Captain Rexoth and his cargo would be long gone, captured by pirates who knew that the human patrol ships were no longer there to stop them. Director J. Ho stood on the observation deck of the evacuation ship and watched Kepler 186F shrink behind them. In the cargo holds below, the last human workers from the planet were settling in for the journey to their new home. They had left behind mining facilities worth millions of credits and processing plants that had taken years to build. Any regrets? Asked his assistant, Minho, as he joined him at the observation window. 6 months after the human withdrawal, Research Director Min Ho sat in his new laboratory aboard the massive ship called New Seoul and smiled as he read the latest intelligence reports. For 20 years, the Galaxy Council had dismissed his work on quantum field manipulation as interesting but impractical. They had said that humans were centuries away from understanding such advanced concepts. They had been wrong about many things, but especially about that. The laboratory around him hummed with the energy of devices that the Council believed impossible. Quantum processors that could calculate the movement of entire star systems. Power generators that pulled energy directly from subspace. Shield systems that could protect a planet from anything short of a supernova. All of it built with human ingenuity and human determination. All of it hidden from galactic eyes until now. Director Min Ho, we are receiving another transmission from the Galaxy Council, reported his assistant, Ha-Na. She had spent the last 5 years pretending to be a simple communications officer while actually running one of the most sophisticated intelligence networks in galactic history. What are they saying this time? Min Ho asked without looking up from his calculations. The same thing they have been saying for months. They want to negotiate. They are willing to discuss our concerns. They promise that humanity will be given a more prominent role in galactic affairs. Min Ho finally looked up from his work. And what is our response? The same as always. No response at all. On the galaxy's capital world, panic was setting in. What had started as economic inconvenience had become a full crisis. Power failures were spreading across multiple worlds as human-maintained systems broke down. Communication networks were failing as relay stations went offline. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were now impassable because the humans had been the ones quietly maintaining the navigation beacons and refueling stations. Counselor Zephyra stood before an emergency assembly of the Galaxy Council and delivered a report that shocked even her. Members of the Council, our investigation into human activities has revealed something extraordinary. For the past 50 years, humans have not just been participants in galactic civilization. They have been its maintenance crew. The chamber filled with confused sounds as dozens of different species tried to process this information. Explain, demanded High Chancellor Morden. Zephyra activated a massive holographic display that showed the galaxy with thousands of colored lines connecting different star systems. This is our galactic infrastructure network as it existed 6 months ago. Power grids, communication relays, transportation networks, industrial facilities. Notice the green connections. Green lines crisscross the galaxy, connecting seemingly unrelated systems and worlds. Each green line represents a piece of infrastructure that was maintained, operated, or improved by humans. As you can see, removing these connections creates massive gaps in our networks. The holographic display changed, and the green lines disappeared. What remained looked like a broken web with huge holes and disconnected segments. Admiral Tharjan leaned forward in his seat. This is impossible. Humans lack the technology for such widespread infrastructure management. That is what we believed, Zephyra replied. But our investigation suggests that we were wrong about human technological capabilities. The humans we dismissed as primitive may actually possess technology that is in some ways more advanced than our own. Investigator Ha-Na had spent years moving through galactic society unnoticed. She looked like just another human trying to fit in, working minor jobs and asking harmless questions. In reality, she was one of dozens of human intelligence operatives who had been collecting information since the day humans first made contact with the galaxy. Now she sat in her cabin aboard New Seoul and compiled her final report on galactic military capabilities. She knew the exact number of ships in every fleet, the specifications of every weapon system, the locations of every military base, and the communications codes for every major operation. The Galaxy Council had never suspected that the helpful human translator working at their military headquarters was actually documenting everything she saw and heard. Ha-Na, you are needed in the command center, came the announcement over the ship's communication system. She made her way through corridors filled with humans who had once lived on 100 different worlds. Engineers, scientists, miners, farmers, doctors, teachers, and thousands of others who had been scattered across the galaxy. Now they were all together on ships like this one, ships that the Galaxy Council did not even know existed. The command center was a marvel of human engineering. Holographic displays showed the status of every human ship and facility across the galaxy. Communication arrays monitored galactic news and government transmissions. Tactical displays tracked the movement of military forces and trade vessels. Fleet. Commander Taeyang stood at the center of it all, a calm presence directing the greatest migration in human history. He had been planning this withdrawal for 20 years, ever since it became clear that the Galaxy Council would never accept humans as equals. "Hana, what is the current status of galactic infrastructure?" he asked. "Deteriorating faster than expected," she replied. The Council assumed that other species could easily replace human services, but they are discovering that our methods were often unique. Power systems that we modified are failing because no one else understands how our improvements worked. Communication networks that we maintained are breaking down because we never shared our diagnostic techniques. And their response? Growing desperation. They are sending diplomatic messages daily, but they refuse to acknowledge the fundamental issue. They still think this is about specific grievances that can be negotiated away. They do not understand that this is about respect. On the planet Altair Prime, engineer Yu Jin's former colleague, Gorvan, was staring at a power distribution panel that had been working perfectly for 3 years. Now it was displaying error messages in human script, and no one could read them. The human engineers who had installed and maintained the system had left behind technical manuals, but the manuals assumed knowledge that other species did not possess. "Computer, translate the error messages," Gorvan commanded. "Translation incomplete. Technical terminology not found in standard databases." The humans had used words and concepts that did not exist in other galactic languages. They had developed their own technical vocabulary based on their unique understanding of quantum mechanics and field theory. Without that understanding, the manuals were useless. Gorvan reached for his communication device and sent a message to the planetary government. "We need to contact human technical support immediately. The entire Eastern power grid is offline, and we cannot determine the cause." The response came back within minutes. "All human technical personnel have been withdrawn from galactic space. No contact information is available." General Krixtal of the Nexian Empire was studying military reports in his office when the scope of the human withdrawal finally became clear to him. His aide had just delivered intelligence assessments from across Nexian space, and every report mentioned the same problem. "Sir, we have lost contact with early warning stations in 7 different systems," the aide reported. "All of these stations were operated by human personnel under contract with our military." Krixtal looked up from the reports. "What about our own personnel? Can we not operate these stations ourselves?" "That is the problem, sir. The humans modified these stations extensively over the years. They improved detection ranges, increased processing power, and integrated the stations with other defense networks. But they used human technology and human techniques that we do not understand." "Are you telling me that our early warning system depends on human cooperation?" "In many sectors, yes, sir. The humans were so effective at improving our systems that we came to rely on their expertise. Now that expertise is gone." Krixtal felt a chill run through his body. Early warning stations were critical for detecting enemy movement and preventing surprise attacks. Without them, the Nexian Empire was vulnerable to threats they might not see coming. President Wu Jin stood on the observation deck of the flagship New Earth and watched the stars stream past. Behind him, the greatest fleet in human history moved through space toward their new home. Hundreds of ships carrying millions of people, along with the equipment and knowledge needed to build a new civilization far from galactic space. "Mr. President, we are receiving another message from the Galaxy Council," reported his communication officer. "What do they want this time?" "They are offering to create a special human sector with autonomous governance. They say we can have our own territory and our own laws, as long as we maintain essential services for the rest of the galaxy." Wu Jin almost laughed. Even now, faced with the collapse of their infrastructure, the Council still believed that humans existed to serve galactic needs. They offered autonomy, but only in exchange for continued service. They offered respect, but only if humans earned it by being useful. "What is our response?" "No response, sir. As always." The silence from human space was becoming more frightening to the Galaxy Council than any threat or demand would have been. Hostile species made demands that could be negotiated or fought. Fleet Admiral Jin Woo stood in the command center of the massive ship Harmony of Stars and watched the holographic display showing the greatest search operation in galactic history. Hundreds of Council ships were scouring space, looking for any sign of the missing human population. They had been searching for 3 months now, and they had found nothing except empty facilities and abandoned outposts. What they did not know was that Jin Woo was watching them search. Hidden sensors placed throughout galactic space were tracking every Council ship, every search pattern, every communication. The humans knew exactly where their former colleagues were looking, and they made sure to stay far away from those areas. "Admiral, we have another group of Zephyrian search ships approaching Sector 7G, reported his sensor officer, Yoon Jung. "How many ships?" Jin Woo asked. 12 heavy cruisers and a support fleet. They are conducting detailed scans of every asteroid and moon in the system." Jin Woo nodded. "Make sure our stealth field generators are operating at full power. We do not want them detecting any energy signatures from our fleet." The human fleet was hiding in plain sight, using technology that the Galaxy Council did not know existed. Stealth fields that bent light around entire ships, making them invisible to sensors, quantum dampeners that masked energy signatures, gravitational scramblers that made ships appear to be in different locations than they actually were. Chief Engineer Bo Ram had spent 20 years developing these systems in secret. She had used her position as a maintenance engineer on various galactic facilities to study alien sensor technology and develop countermeasures. Every time she fixed a Council sensor array, she learned how to fool it. Now she stood beside Admiral Jin Woo and watched the Council search fleet pass within a few thousand kilometers of their position without detecting anything. "They are using standard search patterns," she observed. "The same techniques they have used for centuries. They have no idea that we can make entire fleets invisible." "How long can we maintain the stealth fields?" Jin Woo asked. "Indefinitely. Our new power systems generate more energy than we need. We could hide out here for years if necessary. But hiding was not the plan. The human fleet was not running away from the galaxy. They were preparing to return to it on their own terms." On the planet Kepler 442b, Scout Captain Il Sung was leading a team of human observers who had been left behind when the main population withdrew. They wore holographic disguisers that made them appear to be members of other species, and they moved through galactic society documenting the collapse of infrastructure and the growing panic among government officials. Il Sung's current assignment was to observe the emergency session of the Outer Rim Governors' Council. The governors were meeting to discuss the complete breakdown of law and order in their territories since the human patrol ships had stopped operating. "The pirate attacks are increasing daily," reported Governor Thaxic. "Trade ships are refusing to enter our space because they know there is no protection. Our economies are collapsing. What about hiring private security firms?" suggested Governor Morale. "We tried that. The major security companies say they do not have enough ships to patrol all the routes that the humans were covering. They want to charge us 10 times what we were paying the humans, and they can only provide half the coverage." Il Sung recorded every word while pretending to be a Kalari trade representative. The governors had no idea that a human was sitting among them, listening to their desperation. "We need to convince the Galaxy Council to force the humans to return," declared Governor Rexoth. "This withdrawal is causing problems throughout the galaxy. Surely they can be compelled to resume their duties." "With what leverage?" asked Governor Thaxic. "We do not even know where they went. How can we force someone to do something when we cannot find them?" Meanwhile, Counselor Prime Veltar was leading the largest search operation ever mounted by the Galaxy Council. His personal flagship commanded a fleet of over 1,000 ships from dozens of different species. They had been searching for 4 months, following every lead and investigating every rumor about human activity. "Status report," Veltar demanded as he entered the command center of his flagship. "No significant findings, Counselor Prime," reported his aide. "We have investigated 700 star systems, examined thousands of asteroids and moons, and followed up on 200 reported sightings. All investigations have yielded negative results." Veltar studied the tactical display showing the positions of his search fleets. "How is this possible? Humans had colonies on 47 worlds and operated facilities in over 100 systems. Millions of people and thousands of ships do not simply disappear. Our analysts believe the humans may have left galactic space entirely," the aide suggested. They may have traveled to unexplored regions beyond our current borders. That would require resources and technology far beyond what we believed humans possessed, Veltar replied. They would need massive transport ships, long-range navigation systems, and self-sufficient colonies. Where would they have obtained such capabilities? It was a question that was troubling many council members. The humans who had withdrawn were not the primitive species that the council had believed them to be. They had demonstrated organizational capabilities, technological resources, and strategic planning that suggested decades of secret preparation. Back on the human fleet, President Wu Jin was reviewing the latest reports from observers throughout galactic space. The news was both encouraging and disturbing. Encouraging, because the withdrawal was having exactly the effect that human planners had hoped for. Disturbing, because the level of infrastructure collapse was even worse than they had predicted. Mr. President, we are seeing complete system failures on 17 worlds, reported Intelligence Director Hana. Power grids, communication networks, transportation systems all failing simultaneously. The cascading effect is worse than we modeled. What about casualties? Wu Jin asked. Surprisingly few so far. Most species have emergency backup systems that can maintain basic life support. But their economies and governments are struggling. Several colonies have declared states of emergency. Wu Jin felt a mixture of satisfaction and regret. The humans had not wanted to cause suffering, but they had needed to make their point impossible to ignore. The Galaxy Council had to understand that humans were not optional participants in galactic civilization. They were essential partners who deserved equal treatment. Any attempts to reverse engineer our technology? He asked. Many attempts, but no successes. Our techniques are too different from standard galactic approaches. They are trying to understand quantum field manipulation using classical physics models. It is like trying to understand computers with steam engine theory. Chief Engineer Boram was working on the most ambitious project in human history. In the cargo bays of dozens of ships, human engineers were assembling something that had never been attempted before. Mobile worlds, massive habitats that could house millions of people and move freely through space, completely independent of planetary resources. How are the construction teams progressing? Asked Admiral Jinwoo as he toured the assembly areas. Ahead of schedule, Boram replied. The modular design is working better than expected. Each habitat can house 50,000 people with complete life support, manufacturing facilities, and recreational areas. When we link them together, we will have cities that can travel between stars. And the power systems? Running at optimal efficiency. Our quantum tap generators are providing more energy than we ever had access to on planetary facilities. We are completely self-sufficient. The mobile habitats were the key to human independence. With these ships, humans could maintain their technological civilization without depending on planets, space stations, or any infrastructure controlled by other species. They could go anywhere in the galaxy and establish themselves without permission or support from galactic governments. On the Galaxy Council Station, emergency meetings had become a daily occurrence. High Chancellor Morden found himself dealing with a crisis unlike anything in his 300-year career. Species that had been allies for centuries were beginning to blame each other for the human withdrawal. Trade disputes were escalating into diplomatic incidents. Military tensions were increasing as security systems failed. We need to find the humans immediately, declared Councillor Vexitar during the latest emergency session. This situation is becoming a threat to galactic stability. We have been trying to find them for months, replied Councillor Zafira. Perhaps it is time to consider that they do not want to be found. Then we make them want to be found, Vextar insisted. We offer them whatever they are seeking. Territory, technology, representation, anything they demand. They have made no demands, High Chancellor Morden pointed out. They simply left. How do you negotiate with someone who will not communicate? It was a question that had no good answer. The humans had cut off all diplomatic contact and ignored every attempt at communication. They were not threatening anyone or making demands. They had simply removed themselves from galactic society and taken their contributions with them. Admiral Thargan stood before the council and delivered a military assessment that shocked everyone present. 1 year after the withdrawal, Fleet Commander Tai Yang stood on the bridge of New Earth and watched the most magnificent sight in human history. Spread across space before him was the entire human civilization in motion. Hundreds of massive, Ships, each one a mobile city housing thousands of people. Agricultural vessels growing food in zero gravity. Manufacturing ships building everything from computers to starships. Research vessels pushing the boundaries of science and technology. "Commander, all fleet elements are in position," reported his navigation officer, Subin. "We are ready to begin the final phase." "Communications, open a channel to the Galaxy Council on all frequencies," Taeyang ordered. "It is time to make our presence known." For the first time in 12 months, human signals appeared on galactic communication networks. The message was simple and impossible to ignore. It appeared simultaneously on every major communication channel, on every emergency frequency, and on screens throughout Council space. "This is Fleet Commander Tai Yang of the Human Mobile Civilization. We request a meeting with the full galaxy. Council to discuss new diplomatic relations. We will arrive at Nexus Prime in 72 hours. The message caused chaos throughout the galactic capital. High Chancellor Morden had been in an emergency meeting about infrastructure collapse. When the communication arrived, he and the other council members stared at the holographic display in shock. "Human Mobile Civilization?" asked Councillor Zafira. "What does that mean?" "I believe we are about to find out," the Chancellor replied. Admiral Thargan was studying sensor readings from the edge of Council space when his communication officer brought him disturbing news. "Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the direction of the galactic rim. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases." "How massive?" Thargan asked. "The lead signature is comparable to a moon-sized object. There are dozens of smaller signatures, each one the size of a major space station. And, Admiral, they are moving faster than should be possible for objects of that size." Ambassador Yun Suk had been preparing for this moment her entire career. Unlike the previous human ambassador who had been forced to plead for recognition, she represented a civilization that no longer needed anything from the Galaxy Council. She stood in the diplomatic preparation chamber aboard New Seoul and reviewed her instructions one final time. The terms were simple: complete equality in all galactic affairs, representation proportional to human contributions to galactic civilization, recognition of human sovereignty over their mobile territories, and most importantly, an apology for 50 years of dismissive treatment. "Ambassador, we are approaching the edge of Council space," reported Captain So Young. "Escort fleets from multiple species are moving to intercept us." "Do not change course," Yun Suk replied. "Let them escort us if they wish, but we proceed directly to Nexus Prime as announced." The sight that greeted the Council escort fleets was beyond anything they had imagined. The human ships were not just large, they were impossible. Vessels that stretched for kilometers, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that bent light and space around them. Agricultural ships that looked like floating forests. Manufacturing vessels that sparked with the light of internal fusion reactions. And at the center of it all, a ship that could only be described as a mobile planet. Admiral Thargan received the initial reports from his reconnaissance ships and could barely believe what he was reading. "These energy readings cannot be accurate," he told his sensor officer. "No civilization has the technology to build ships this large. Sir, we have confirmed the readings with multiple sensor arrays. The human fleet consists of over 300 vessels ranging from 5 kilometers to 50 kilometers in length. The largest ship appears to have a population comparable to a major planetary city." President Wu Jin stood in the observation lounge of New Earth and watched the Galaxy Council fleets gathering around them. Dozens of species had sent ships to witness the return of humanity, and the fear in their formations was obvious. They maintained defensive positions while trying to scan the human vessels, but their sensors revealed nothing except impenetrable energy shields. "Mr. President, we are receiving communication requests from 18 different species," reported his communication officer. "They all want to establish diplomatic contact." "Decline all requests except from the official Galaxy Council representative," Wu Jin replied. "We will speak to individual species after we have resolved matters with the Council as a whole." The human fleet took up position outside Nexus Prime and waited. The message was clear to anyone who understood tactics. The humans were not asking for permission to enter. They were announcing their presence and giving the Council time to prepare for what was coming. High Chancellor Morden called an emergency session of the full Galaxy Council. Representatives from over 100 species gathered in the Great Chamber, all of them staring at the holographic displays showing the human fleet. The energy readings were beyond anything in galactic databases. The technology was centuries ahead of what any council species possessed. Members of the council, the Chancellor, began, "We face a situation unlike any in our recorded history. The humans have returned, but they have returned as something we do not recognize." Councillor Vexitar was studying the tactical displays with growing alarm. How did they develop such advanced technology in only 50 years? Where did they obtain the resources to build such a fleet? "Perhaps," suggested Councillor Zafira, "we were wrong about human capabilities from the very beginning." The truth was beginning to dawn on the council members. The humans they had dismissed as primitive had been concealing their true abilities for decades. The species they had treated as junior partners had been more advanced than any of them. Ambassador Yunsuk made her entrance into the council chamber with quiet dignity. Unlike her predecessor, who had stood alone before hostile faces, she was accompanied by a team of advisors and protected by technology that made the council's security systems look primitive. Energy fields surrounded the human delegation, providing both protection and privacy. "Members of the Galaxy Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "I come before you not as a petitioner seeking acceptance, but as a representative of an equal civilization seeking to establish new diplomatic relations." High Chancellor Mordun leaned forward in his chair. "Ambassador, humanity withdrew from all treaties and agreements with this council. What has changed?" "What has changed is that humanity no longer needs the permission or approval of this council to exist and thrive in the galaxy. We have demonstrated that we can build our own civilization, maintain our own technology, and defend our own interests. From this position of strength, we are willing to discuss cooperation as equals." The word equals echoed through the chamber. It was not a request or a plea. It was a statement of fact backed by the impossible fleet hovering outside the station. Admiral Thargan received urgent reports from his fleet commanders as they tried to analyze the human ships. "Admiral, our scanning attempts are being blocked by some form of adaptive shielding. The humans appear to be using technology that responds to our sensors and prevents detailed analysis." "What about weapons signatures?" Thargan asked. "Unknown. We can detect massive energy sources, but we cannot determine their purpose. For all we know, any of those ships could destroy this entire station." Chief Engineer Boram stood in the engineering section of New Earth and monitored the galactic response to their arrival. Council ships were attempting to scan human vessels, but their sensors revealed nothing except what the humans wanted them to see. The real capabilities of the human fleet remained hidden. "Engineer Boram, the council fleets are moving into defensive positions," reported her tactical officer. "Let them position themselves however they like," she replied. "Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields, and their ships cannot match our speed. If they want to start a conflict, it will be very short and very one-sided." But conflict was not the goal. The humans had not come to conquer or destroy. They had come to establish a new relationship based on mutual respect and genuine equality. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Yun Suk was presenting the human terms with calm authority. "Humanity requests full membership in the Galaxy Council, with voting rights proportional to our contributions to galactic infrastructure. We request recognition of our mobile territories as sovereign space subject to human law. We request equal access to all galactic trade routes and markets. And we request a formal apology for the dismissive treatment humanity received during our previous membership." The chamber filled with shocked sounds as the implications became clear. The humans were not asking to rejoin the council as junior members. They were demanding admission as equals, or possibly superiors. Councillor Vextar stood up, his scales shifting to angry colors. "This is outrageous. You cannot simply leave for a year and return making demands. The galaxy does not work this way." "The galaxy works. However, civilizations with sufficient power decide it should work," Ambassador Yun Suk replied calmly. "We have demonstrated our power. Now we are offering cooperation. The choice is yours." High Chancellor Mordun was studying the situation from every angle.